Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Leaders in Supply Chain Talent podcast. I'm your host, Shubh Fauzdar, Head of Training and Development at Alcott Global. And today I have the pleasure of having my colleague, Rushit Shah, who is the Regional Director of Asia Pacific for Alcott Global for our executive search division to be here to share with you everything about what's happening in recruitment and what are the things you should be looking out for attracting and retaining talent, as well as you as a candidate if you're looking for a role. So let me very quickly introduce a bit about Rushit. Rushit comes with 20 years of experience in executive search and selection, with 8 years of supply chain consulting service within APAC. He has worked for more than 40 years with diversified industries and functionality. In his current role at Alcott Global, he's managing supply chain management, logistics, procurement, manufacturing, regulatory, quality and operations functions, and catering to pharma, packaging, FMCG, food and beverage, industrial equipment, and medical device industries in the APAC. So basically everything. He is also a recently converted vegan. Well, when I say recently, it's 8 or 9 months, Rushit?
Yeah, almost there. Yeah.
All right, good. So thank you so much for joining us today, Rushit. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Show. Let me start with saying this. I've seen your podcast and heard all your podcasts. So I was very surprised that I got this invitation from you. So I feel like I'm on the clouds right now. So thank you so much.
Oh, great. So, Rushit, you've been in this industry for so long, and then with the pandemic, so much has changed about supply chain, the whole image of the industry, and of course, the recruitment space is buzzing. So, how has that experience been of being an executive recruiter within this space in the last couple of years?
I had two phases in pandemic. So I'll have to start with how pandemic started, with uncertainty, with getting lockdowns. I'm a very Panglossian guy, so I'm very optimistic around things, but the market itself was not very optimistic. Supply chain was not very optimistic. So everything was going down. So nobody saw that what's happening right now is literally nobody expected it. And then there's this phase two where everybody in supply chain got so busy because there are a lot of challenges. Those challenges got new opportunities for people. And because of that, there was a lot of hiring. Right now, it's employees market, not employers market anymore, which is a great thing. Everybody's hiring, everybody's looking for talents, and this is where we make our money, and I'm able to kind of get my bread and butter. So it's a great opportunity. It's a great phase to be in. But now we are kind of kind of hitting the challenge of, okay, now when it's an employees market, how do you make sure that we are able to find people at the right budget? So, finances comes in place. How do you make sure that this talent is going to stay longer? So, kind of a lot of retention models come in place. And if the company is going through attrition, how do we make sure that, people who are getting laid off, how do we help them? And how do we make sure that, they are kind of getting a job, not just because there are a lot of jobs, but they're looking at right jobs for longer term.
Yeah, so you've touched a bit about it being employees market, and we have all been hearing about the great resignation and within supply chain and logistics, seeing a dearth of good talent. What advice would you give companies to hire and retain top talent?
I think, all right. I mean, there are a few companies who are very good in kind of creating a strategy around if every role has a succession and, people should come within. But there has been a situation where company has lost people, the whole team are gone. And it was nothing just because that, they don't have enough budget to cross the challenges they were facing. So, they've lost teams. And for them, the only solution is to basically pay a lot of money, get from talent outside. And there is no shortcut to that, to be honest. You basically have to spend money to get higher talent. But people who have planned it, and the way they have done it is, first, they had succession. So every person who was hired, they were already internally looked at who can be the person can shadow under them and make sure they're picking up those skill set. And you see that a lot in major companies. I was hearing one of your podcasts which talks about that as well. I think it was Adidas and L'Oreal. Both of them follows this succession planning, which is amazing because that there are a lot of opportunities out there. You don't take them for granted. Problem is, many of the supply chain professionals are back office people for many companies, and they always take them for granted. And once they resign, they start realizing the cost of not having them, right? This is why it's important to start taking procurement, supply chain, and logistics, or pragmatic people, very seriously in the business. Make sure that there's a kind of a growth track for them in the business. There's already a lot of challenges in their current role. So they're not going to ask you for more responsibility, but they're going to ask you for more support. So if you do not give them more support, if you do not increase the budget for them to spend to reduce their workload, they are going to leave. Yeah.
Good. So, you touched a lot about, people, especially in supply chain and logistic, usually being seen as the back office people. And then recently we've had this whole change of image of supply chain where people of other industries want to come, or other functions want to move there as well. And you talked about, companies providing support to people when they hire them or when they change roles. So can you share with us some examples where probably some of your clients have hired people coming from other functions or industries and given that right start to these people, whether it was learning and development, or as you mentioned about, the shadowing, the succession planning, etc.?
Sure. I use this story a lot, so a lot of them have already heard this. I was working for this healthcare company, which they're basically kind of a hospitality group, and we were looking for procurement professionals. And basically finding procurement professional in medical devices is already a major challenge because they're really paid well, they're really taken well care of, and they're not major talents who would know key products, how they're made, right? So we started looking for new solution on how to find candidates. I mean, one is, of course, you can go outside the region and look for talent, but it was costing way more. So we said, okay, let's try new things. We went to salespeople who were selling those products. So it was basically consumable healthcare products. We started interviewing salespeople because they knew two things very well. One, they knew how to negotiate, and they knew the product very well. So once you start breaking down the job description into kind of soft skills and technical skills, it's very easy to then go and look for functions within other companies to attract, because salespeople were basically, I mean, they're well paid, but they're not as well paid as procurement right now. I'm working on a role right now which pays almost $1 million.
Wow.
And this is a role in US. So anybody who is looking for a procurement logistics role to be based in US, please reach out to me. I'm sorry for tapping into and pitching my job in your podcast. But yeah, so idea really is to go to different functions within a company and breaking down the JD into two: one soft skill and one technical skills, and then you'll definitely be able to find. And I've done in many other functions as well. There was a managing director role. This role was a P&L management role, majorly focusing on operations, and the operation was majorly about kind of making pragmatic decision on reducing the cost or reducing the bottom line. We placed a HR person because HR person who came from a strong business partnering background as a managing director. And this lady did an amazing job. In 2 years, she kind of transformed the cost, really reduced it, put new policies in place, created a culture which is more sustainable, where there was less attrition. And then she started getting more people to support her to grow commercially. So it has worked for us, and we constantly look for new solution instead of just going and looking for same functions in different companies.
And I think when you get people coming from different functions, different backgrounds, they also have this, this innovative side. They are looking at things for the first time. They're not stuck with, oh, this is how we have traditionally done, or this is how I've seen this happening. And I mean, in the last 2 years, everything has just changed. So I'm sure they would have added a very different perspective to what the companies were used to. Also, I think kudos to the companies and you as a recruiter for convincing the companies, if that happened, to be open to such solutions. Because sometimes when you're speaking to HR or hiring managers, they're very focused on what skills people already bring to the table.
I think
Good.
when companies are, they spend 6 months to 12 months of just finding a talent they could not, and then they decide, okay, let's go outside and find it. And then, recruiters like us will go and do the obvious data pool, connect with them and see what the interest. Even after reaching out to 100 people, you do not get your shortlist. Then you really have to go out. And most clients, I think, at least the ones I've worked with, they're open to hear when you provide data. And for us, it's more easy to provide data because, we talk to people, we get information from them. It's yes, no, why they do not want. And once we have a visible data to provide, they will listen to us. Yeah.
Fantastic. So new solutions, new way of hiring. And that brings me to the topic of diversity and inclusion within talent acquisition. So there has been a huge drive for D&I. And, as somebody who partners with companies in that very first step of attracting and recruiting talent, how have you seen the whole diversity and inclusion agenda being actually practiced and not just something people talk about in board meetings and as a PR stint, but actually practicing it in their day-to-day recruitment?
Okay, I can tell you that recruitment companies have been culprit for non-diversity in many companies, to be honest, right? Recruitment companies' work is to find the best talent, provide it to them, make money out of it, right? It's very transactional. Singapore took steps to make sure that recruitment companies in Singapore are providing gender, national diversification while providing it to profiles to companies. So they would ask for us, the gender, they'll ask for age and nationality, just to make sure that the companies are basically making sure that they're not just going after specific race, nationality, and gender. So I think it was more Singapore pushing, and then there are Singapore pushing those companies as well to have this diversification. But when I just shift from Singapore to, let's say, Thailand, there is never a decision around, oh, just give me this, give me either, it can be just male, or just give me female in HR, give me in this age. So I think recruitment company are the culprits, honestly, but it has started changing now because companies are pushing the recruitment companies to provide them all solutions. So if the shortlist does not have specific nationality or gender, they will ask for us to make sure we add them. So I would not take any credit to the recruitment firms, but I think I'll give credit to companies and the HR who are making sure that they are getting talents which has far more diversification.
And it's so heartening to hear that companies are driving that agenda. When I was a recruiter, I remember being given very specific a criteria of age group or the gender, because this is that age group where people think of increasing family. We would prefer males so they don't go on maternity leave, and I used to find it so weird at that point in time, like you are missing out on such great talent just because you are thinking about those 4 months of this person not being around
I've
versus
lost
all
clients
the
to
other.
that. I've literally lost clients because I said that you have to meet, and they're like, you do not understand my requirements. Just let's not work together. I said, all right, fair enough. Because problem is sometimes they do not understand what's happening, the reality of the market. They just like, oh, this is what I want. They do not want to listen to what's happening in the market, what kind of talent is available, and But I'm happy not to work with those kind of clients as well. So it's
exactly. I remember when I had started in recruitment, I had fired a client because they told me that I have to ask this person who they were very keen on when she wants to start her family, and if it was in the next 1 to 2 years, they didn't want to hire her. And I declined, and I said, I can't work with you. And thankfully, my manager at that point in time didn't fire me for that. So this was like in the 2008, 2009, 2010 period, but I think companies have come very far in that agenda. So great to hear that you are seeing such good progress in terms of recruitment. So now let's move to the candidate side, and you said it's the candidates market, the employees market, etc. So how can a job seeker make sure that they are getting a number of amazing opportunities and positions themselves correctly for those opportunities? Because even though I hear from recruiters that it's employees market, there are a lot of people who are struggling to get the right kind of opportunities.
Right. Shub, this is a very debatable topic. Okay. Now imagine people say there is no job available. I know McDonald's outside my house has constantly put the board that they're hiring. So there are jobs out there. It's just that the expectation, same how employers have expectation, employees has to have certain expectation as well. Oh, I would not do a certain job. So let's say if they're not able to get a certain, let's say director level role, they want a team management role, and they want certain specific, at least this salary, they always look at financial components, something that is very tangible. And I think this has to be changed. You have to start looking at a very different way. So if you're used to doing certain stature of a job, then, but you still want, and you have been unemployed for 6 months, 5, 6 months. No, there are jobs. People do want you, but then you have to start compromising a little bit, start looking non-financial components. Specifically, okay, can this role grow into a bigger one in probably just a year from now? Would you take a pay cut because probably the budget for this year is almost gone, but they still want you, and can you ask them to relook at it next year? So there are things which these candidates can consider, but they don't, because they have very strict expectations, same as certain clients who do not find their talents because they have strict expectations. So unless you are going to compromise that, you're not going to find a job. But the truth still is that when I say it's employers market, it's still within supply chain, right? Because a lot of talents, because of the high pressure, has moved out of supply chain, and that's the truth, where the people have been working more than 60 hours a week, which was before was also norm, but now the 60 hours is constantly picking up new problems and solving that. Before it was one problem trying to solve that, and the challenge is every morning you will pick, that there's some problem, you just have to read, okay, what is it today? And that's the reality. And some people do not want that. So they left the whole industry as well. So that has happened a lot, quite a bit. Yeah. Where I've candidates who basically said, no, they definitely don't want any supply chain project manager job. They were like, more work-life balance. Unfortunately, supply chain cannot promise work-life balance anymore. And that's the fact, right? So few of the roles we had, I think late last year, was working with SES company, which were into supply chain, where it was more about functional expertise needed. So a lot of supply chain people have moved there. And it looks easier right now, but when they start kind of implementing that, the demand of work comes in. But unfortunately, there's no work-life balance right now for supply chain people. I know people who are working quite crazy. They're trying their best to kind of get some work-life balance, but there is nothing right now. I've not heard many of my clients giving that or promising their work-life balance in their company.
So look, I just wanted to add something to it, and correct me if I've got you correct here, is you have to pick your battles. You can't have all the 7-8 factors which you're considering for a role and you don't budge at all. What I typically when I work with people and they are going through the job search journey is tell them to look at their top 3 factors which they want to have, but the other things you have to play around with it. And even with the top 3 things, you have to be flexible in terms of seeing what the opportunity can become at a later stage. But it also doesn't mean that you don't have anything at all and you accept the next position which comes your way. So it has to be a balance, as you said. Sometimes clients also have unrealistic expectations of what you're doing. So you have to check your premise. Are you having those unrealistic expectations? Or if you're working crazy hours, is it going to be for a very long time? And would it suit you? Or it's a short stint, but it will take your career to the next level, etc. Now, you also talked about people leaving supply chain. At the same time, a lot of people who want to move into supply chain, I cannot tell you how many LinkedIn messages I get from people who say, I want to move into supply chain. What should I do? So for them, Rushit, what would you say if somebody is from a non-supply chain and logistics background who wants to move there at a mid-level? What can they do to put themselves in the right position?
Actually, there is a far more attraction for companies to attract talent outside supply chain, outside supply chain functions within their requirements. So now companies has really opened up. So I have not really met a company who is saying, no, I'm not going to look at a salesperson or HR person or a finance person coming in supply chain. Actually, many of the procurement people do come from finance background, by the way. And this continues, and I think this will continue growing. But what they have to do is same thing. Look at the two things. Just literally note down one of the forte in soft skills you have, one of the forte you have in technical skills, and start matching those two skills to the functions within supply chain. Supply chain is a very big gamut, right? So you have to start looking at, let's say if you're coming from IT background, for example, you have done very good system implementation. Supply chain, a lot of companies are implementing systems, SAS, SAS, SaaS within their company. You can look at them, or they need an expertise on project management. You can move into project management within supply chain. For example, if you're doing procurement, if you're great with, kind of creating contracts, reading contracts, coming up with new solutions, then procurement definitely needs you. Like any company, when you reach out to them, they would want to hear you. The only thing is they don't know how to sell, right? So storytelling is one thing, which I remember you had a storytelling training. And for me, it's like, everybody who reach out to me with they'll just say, oh, this is my CV, I'm looking for this job. I want to tell them, please go and take this storytelling, because you need this. You cannot just reach out and saying that this is what I want and you don't have any experience. Instead, you should tell me that this is your forte and this is within this functions you see yourself in, and try to create a story to sell yourself, because if you can't sell yourself to me, I can't sell you ahead. So yeah, storytelling is very important.
Good. So I'm glad you touched on some of the skills which are required to get into supply chain. Now, how about the skills, whether it's technical or soft skills, which are most important for a professional to get into senior level leadership roles within the industry? What would your top skills be?
Okay, imagine this, you're running a shipping company which is worth $10 billion, and then you are trying to find somebody who's going to run that business, who does not know that business at all. As an investor, how open are you going to be to have somebody coming from outside? So let's first look at that perspective of, if you are a client, would you allow somebody, would you have someone who is completely from outside?
Well, I would, if they've got experience in running a business of that size. It doesn't have to be shipping. Maybe they have very good experience in that. And if they've been in a similar journey, which the company is going through right now. So if I'm thinking of scaling up drastically and they've done that in the past, I don't care if they come from which industry. But yeah, those, I think if it's in the similar journey, as well as, some parallels.
Exactly. So basically, let's say as an investor, you will look at how are you going to impact my business, right? So the whole question or my evaluation is going to be, how are you going to help me?
Yeah.
Right. And now let's look at as a candidate. Candidate has to be as, how are you confident enough to run that business, right? So if you lack that confidence that, oh, I do not know, or in meetings you say, listen, I'm not aware how to do this. If you use any of those terms, you already lose. If you do not show the confidence that you will understand, that you understand the business already, you will know what kind of problems you can expect and how you're going to solve it, you're going to lose it. So as a candidate, you have to be confident that you can actually do this job. So fake it, kind of make it kind of thing does actually work in senior level. And people are going to be open if they're not able to find the direct options, right? So again, at all levels, for me, my expertise is really not mid-level. So I don't know mid-level. I know major senior level people are moving in supply chain, but majorly who are really confident that they can make it. Okay. Have they made it or not is a different question.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, if you remember last year when I started working with Alcott, I don't have supply chain experience, but it was about, I have a lot of experience in learning and development and training. I don't know if I've made it or not. You can tell me that.
You made it.
Oh, thank you. But it was a lot about, whether you want to do it, whether you're up for the challenge, and if you feel you can, and of course the kind of support which the company provides as well. So thank you for that, Rushit. Look, I'm going to start wrapping up our conversation. You and I can have very long
we could have
chats.
Spoken longer. Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
we can continue that offline. But I want to ask you a question about your career. What has been the one thing you started or changed that has led to the most impact in your career?
Okay, I've been very fortunate. Actually, how I start is very important, because very few people know that actually when I started, I was a programmer, and I was a programmer at a very young age. And I started because I was just curious about learning. And then when I was doing programming, I realized, okay, this is not for me. I want to do more. I wanted to learn more. And I thought to learn more, you need to speak to more people. And that's how I kind of ended up in recruitment. In last 8 years, what has happened is because I said I want to focus on exploring more regions. By the way, I've actually worked for more than 40 countries. And while I was working with each country, I've learned a lot about, kind of their processes, policies, candidates, mindset, culture. And that what made me more excited to continue doing this on a more kind of global level. What I compromised was never to look at a job as a financial component. Anything which is very tangible, try and not to see that first. Try to see that, how's the team, what kind of support I can get to grow, what kind of learning I'm going to get. Am I going to really enjoy it, in the sense, is this the challenge which I'm going to enjoy it, or is this the challenge I'm going to rant about to my family, right? So looking at non-tangible, like more non-financial component really helped me. But the thing was, I was passionate about one thing, which was about the curiosity of learning about new countries and cultures and traveling. And all my job while I'm exploring, I was looking really that when I was meeting them. Would they give me that? If they give me that, I would basically be more interested to explore that. And ELCOT, again, I think is really global. It's given me opportunity to kind of manage APAC. Plus now I'm managing Northern America. So this does give me kind of more excitement to continue being with ELCOT and continue doing what I'm doing. By the way, now I don't have any development skills left. So only thing I know now is recruitment. So I'm stuck to that.
Okay, so no programmer offers for Rushit, please. We love him too much to give him to any tech IT side of things. So he's going to continue with us. Well, it has been a lot of fun as always to speak to you, Rushit. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation as much as we have had fun having this conversation. Please remember to follow Rushit. His profile is linked in the description of this podcast. This is a pre-recorded podcast, so we will not be able to take any of the live questions, but please do write in your comments and I will make sure Rushit answers your comments and adds more value to you. Thank you very much and have a great day.